Do you like playing with balls? No, I'm not talking about footballs. I mean your balls. Our friends at Manscaped, the global leaders in below the waist grooming, want you to shave your pubes with the Tom Brady of ball trimmers, the brand new Lawnmower 4.0. Only the GOAT technology for the greatest balls of all time. When you're going towards the end zone, make sure you use the right tools for the job and choose Manscaped. 2 million men worldwide trust them, so join the movement with our exclusive offer by using code DTR at manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping.
Stafford under pressure, going to tuck it in. He's in. Darrell Henderson, he's off and running. As Woods, touchdown. Cooper Kupp just went up and took it away.
Van Jefferson for the touchdown.
Aaron Donald smothers him. Jalen Ramsey put the pop on. Sacked by Leonard Floyd, having a day again.
Darius Williams with a diving hit. Jordan Fuller comes up with his second interception of the night.
All right, guys, welcome back to Downtown Rams. As always, I'm your host, Alexis Kraft, joined here with my co-host, Jake Ellenbogen. And guys, with sports betting season in full force and NHL and NBA playoffs, football fast approaching, you need a sportsbook with integrity and longevity like BetUS. You may already know this, but BetUS has been pioneers in the sportsbook industry for almost 3 decades, thriving and paying their loyal customer base. That is betus.com, and they have loads of bonuses. Join now or call 800-69-BET-US. That is 800-MY-BET-US. You receive a 125% sign-up bonus by using bonus code RAMS125. They have re-up and referral bonuses also. BetUS is known as America's favorite sportsbook for a lot of reasons. BetUS has all your NBA, NHL games with team and player props and loads of NFL futures and NFL odds up already. You can bet UFC matches, props, PGA golf, and round matchups. Live betting on most sports, including golf, the online casino, has hundreds of games, and the racebook has all your horse tracks. They have every bet type imaginable, and the sharp BetUS mobile platform is easy with full betting options. Follow my lead, get your phone, online, social sports betting partner with integrity, longevity, like I did. BetUS. You bet, you win, you get paid. BetUS. We are coming to you today after the official 53-man roster was announced, not only by the Rams, but all 32 NFL teams. It was a big day. There was a lot of cuts all over the league. Very sad day for most people. You know, it's not easy to make an NFL roster, and this day is a day that obviously breeds a lot of anxiety, not just among players, but among fans as well. I know Jake and I were scrolling through social media fast and furiously all day, trying to get the latest updates, trying to see what's going on. And now we are going to break down the 53-man Los Angeles Rams 2021 roster for you guys. We're just going to run through by position. I'll list out who's left on the roster, and then we'll discuss anything notable there, any surprises, people who might have gotten cut, and we'll just go through it. How's it sound, Jake?
Sounds good.
All right, so starting with the quarterbacks. There are 3 quarterbacks on the Los Angeles Rams roster. That includes Matthew Stafford, John Wolford, and Bryce Perkins. And Jake, the big news here, it shouldn't even be big news in my opinion because it's so unsurprising, but it's the fact that Bryce Perkins made the 53-man roster, which we are so excited about. And, you know, there's a lot of people that didn't think that he would make the roster, but you and I both have talked about before on the podcast that there was no way the Rams weren't going to put him on the roster because there'd be no way that he would clear waivers.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Alexis. You know, when you go and you look at all the quarterbacks that were, you know, released, and, you know, I brought this up on my show during the cuts. Basically, the fact is, you know, everyone's like, oh, well, you know, you have a guy and Garrett Gilbert here and Kyle Auletta here. And, you know, I'll just stop you there and just say, well, none of them do what Bryce Perkins does. You talk about his mobility and, you know, just the fact that, you know, he can run, but he showed more than that. I mean, it was weird, and it was a really good comparison seeing number 16, Bryce Perkins wearing Jared Goff's number and seeing his head on a swivel. It just felt like, honestly, an illusion in a sense, going through his first, his second, his third, his fourth read. Sean McVay said after, you know, in the press conference, you know, he said, if you told me 3 weeks ago that we were going to keep 3 quarterbacks, I would have said, no, that's not the plan at all. But Bryce made it really hard for them. And, that's pretty much what you and I expected. We both had him making the 53. I just think, they realized how easy it was to get him on last year, right? No preseason, UDFA, very limited exposure. It was easy. But this year, he led the NFC in passing yards. He started all of the last preseason game. If he had played 4 preseason games, I mean, they might have gotten trade offers. So they were not keeping Bryson Hopkins if they decided to, try to have him go through waivers and add him to the practice squad. It just wasn't going to happen. And furthermore, I'll say this. I love John Wolford as much as the next guy, but here's the exposure we have with Wolford. He got hurt in his second ever game, and he's an exclusive rights free agent after the end of the year. And to be honest with you, everything that I heard, the way Wolford comes in, he always wants to start. He doesn't actually have that mentality of, okay, I'm a backup, I'll wait until it's my turn. Wolford has that, that mentality of I'm going to start. And he put pressure on Jared Goff. So I'm not saying he's putting pressure on Matthew Stafford. But what I am saying is that because of that mentality, it might make John Wolford want to start so bad that he looks, somewhere else and basically tries to, ask for a trade next year, since I think Stafford is going to be the quarterback for the foreseeable future, and rightfully so.
Yeah, certainly something to look out for. And again, just super happy that Bryce Perkins made the 53-man. It's not a surprise at all, but it's still, a good feeling to see that set in stone. And he is more than deserving, in our opinion. So moving on to the running backs, there are currently 3 running backs on the 53-man roster, and that includes Darrell Henderson, Sony Michel, and Jake Funk. This is not that surprising to me. Some people, I think, might be a little concerned about only having 3 running backs on the roster. I just don't think it's that concerning because they'll probably have at least 2 on the practice squad, if not, possibly a third. But Jake, I don't think that the Rams are so much running a running back like committee like they tried to do when we had Jared Goff, when we had Malcolm Brown, Darrell Henderson, and Cam Akers. I think that for this year, because Cam Akers out, we're really only going to see Darrell Henderson and Sony Michel. I do think Jake Funk is going to come in occasionally, but I don't think that it's going to be an even split of carries between the 3. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think really what you're looking at is Darrell Henderson, getting the 20-plus carries. Look, this is somebody that is even better when he has carries, around the 20 mark. His biggest issue is trying to get into a rhythm, and the Rams did not know how to use him last year to benefit him to the best of his ability. I mean, you talk about a guy that was the most efficient last year, including Cam Akers and Malcolm Brown. Now he is the guy. I think he's going to get 20 plus touches. I think you're going to look at Sony Michel around the 10 to 12 touch per game area. And then you're going to look at, Jake Funk with the single digit around maybe 5 touches a game or less. Mainly focusing on special teams, and I think he'll be your kick returner. The fact of the matter is that, Xavier Jones was going to make this roster, I think, and, Xavier Jones with the, unfortunately, with the surgery he's going to have on his Achilles, he will now no longer make the 53-man roster. He's going to be waived injured. And so in a way, I guess it works out if he wasn't truly going to make the roster, after everything that goes on, with the practice squad, and if they make any claims, then this does ensure the Rams will have him once he claims, because he's going to clear waivers as a an injured player, but I guess it ensures that they'll have him for next year. He'll be able to fight, and I know Sean McVay is really he's bummed for him, and obviously rightfully so, but he also really can't wait to work with him again. They really like him, and it's just a matter of what Jake Funk was able to do with his opportunity, and he really it sounds like he really outshined Xavier Jones, even though coming in Jones seemed like by far the backup.
Right. Yeah, interesting to see how that plays out. And then we go to the wide receiver position, which is not a surprise at all. There's 6 wide receivers on the roster, including Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, Deshaun Jackson, Van Jefferson, Tutu Atwell, and Ben Skornick. Pretty much what was expected. I mean, there's nothing really surprising there other than, obviously the release of maybe Tristan Jackson. But Jake, what are your thoughts on this?
This is an interesting one. So, kind of in line. So, I mean, I got the quarterbacks completely right. The running backs, I had Xavier Jones, so I was wrong there. Receiver, I actually had Tristan Jackson, but I had Skoranek. I had them keeping 7. Interesting because I was expecting, the way I did it is I had Skoranek, they put him on short-term IR, and then they bring in Tristan Jackson. Because I think he was going to make it through waivers. I think they'll have an opportunity to put him on the practice squad. But because, the recent event with Sean McVay and his presser, I don't necessarily think that Ben Skoranek is going to go on short-term IR. Keep in mind, they did this to make sure he's on the roster because they view him as a contributor on special teams, contributor in the red zone. So he's going to have a role. And, that was a big point that of emphasis that was made. And the fact that Sean McVay, it sounded like he'll be ready to resume activities in 2 weeks. He might miss the Bears game, but I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think they're going to put him on the IR because I don't think they want to miss out on him in special teams and potentially on offense in, weeks 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah, I agree there. I think Ben is actually going to play a lot more than people are expecting. Once he's all healthy, I think that he's going to be a very specific part of the game plan. But that leads us into the tight end position, which, again, not much of a shock. So we have 4 tight ends on the roster, including Tyler Higbee, Johnny Munt, Bryson Hopkins, and Jacob Harris. Kendall Blanton did not make the 53-man roster. He did, however, play relatively well in preseason. I don't know that he's going to clear waivers, although if he does, I imagine that he's someone that the Rams are going to want back because he's familiar with their system. And, he does have a lot of potential. But Jake, what are your thoughts on the 4 tight ends on this roster?
Yeah, I actually had them keeping these 4 guys. I kept hearing over and over again. We talked about it, the last podcast and why I like Bryson the way I do. And, I just kept hearing, no, Bryson Hopkins isn't going to make the team. And I'm like, I just disagree. I mean, I think he's absolutely going to make the team. I see them as a long-term option. They're trying to work with him and develop him as a true inline tight end. So he has, long-term value because they got a flex wide receiver / tight end, Jacob Harris. And interestingly enough, I mean, Sean McVay kind of said, I don't think they really know what Jacob Harris is even yet. He's listed as a tight end, but he said, he's like, if he's a wide receiver or a tight end. So, they're going to work with him. And most importantly, I think when Sean McVay was discussing it, Jacob Harris is a special teamer first. He has crazy upside. But Sean McVay said that he was identified by the special team coaches, the assistant coach and the regular special team coach. And I think that says a lot. So, just looking at that, I wouldn't be surprised if that's what we end up seeing is that, Jacob Harris gets, a ton of work in on special teams. And then eventually he, kind of finds his own, role with the Rams on offense as like, say an end zone threat or somebody like that.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be something interesting to look for, in regards to the tight ends is who's used where and what and how much Jacob Harris is used. But I agree. I think at first he is going to kind of be mainly a special teams guy. I'm not saying that he's not going to get in eventually into the offensive action. I just don't think it's going to be right away. I do think they're probably going to still try to see what Bryson Hopkins can do more on the offense than Jacob Harris, at least at first, but we'll see how it goes. Now, going into the offensive line, there are currently 9 offensive linemen on the Rams roster, including Andrew Whitworth, David Edwards, Brian Allen, Austin Corbett, Rob Havenstein, Joe Notmube, Bobby Evans, Tremaine Ankrum Jr., and Alaric Jackson. 9 guys. So couple, well, Jake, I'll let you take this first. There's a couple surprises here, but like, are they really surprises, or is it just what say you?
Yeah, so I mean, looking back at last year, they kept 10, and for the most part, they kept everybody from last year except for Austin Blythe and who's not with the Rams, of course, and Coleman Shelton, who is actually going to be kept. Sean McVay made a point to say that they really like him, and he's on COVID IR, so he will be actually made to come back to the 53-man roster as soon as he's ready. They're going to keep him. So this roster is, and I can't stress it enough, initial. It is tentative, but the 9 that they kept, I mean, I'm not a fan at all of Bobby Evans. I can't stress that enough. Alaric Jackson is an interesting one. McVay went over it in his presser. This is somebody that their scouting team, and rather, Coach Kevin Carberry went over with his coaches that, Alaric Jackson, somebody they really wanted in college free agency, a guy that, I know for a fact the Rams had a draftable grade on out of Iowa. And he played every single snap, I believe, at left tackle. So they really tested him, and he answered the bell. So, that's somebody that they really like. Again, I just don't get it. Bobby Evans was horrible against, low-level competition. And Tremaine Akram, we had a little bit of a scare because he was not at camp, or was not at practice today because of his knee injury. Which means that, by the way, he was playing against Von Miller with a knee injury, so easy on the hate there. Tremaine Akram's going to go on short-term IR from how it sounds, according to Sean McVay. So he will be back. They love him. There was a scare because he wasn't at practice, and so it meant people thought he was cut because of it. But we will see. But Tremaine Akram, it sounds like he's going to go on short-term IR, and they're going to bring in Coleman Shelton in response to that.
Life is back on sports bettors, and BetUS has your NBA, NHL, UFC, PGA, and yes, NFL betting lines up on their 27th year and live betting on all of it. Log into BetUS, that is BETUS.com, or call 800-792-3887. That's 800-79-BETUS. BetUS for 125% bonuses with promo code RAMS125. Customer service pros are ready to get your phone, social, and online sports betting kickoff started now. Play with the proven mainstay in the industry, BetUS. You bet, you win, you get paid. BetUS.com. Ready for an out-of-world experience, fellas? Look no further than the Performance Package 4.0 from Manscaped. That has just taken off in not only the USA, but Canada, the UK, across Europe, Australia, South Africa, and Singapore. Inside this package, you'll find their Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer, Crop Preserver ball deodorant, Crop Reviver toner, Performance boxer briefs, and a travel bag to hold your whole solar system in. First scheduled for liftoff, new Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, this spaceship is here to guide you on a journey to trim your body, balls, butt, and even your anus. This 4th generation trimmer also features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to our advanced skin-safe technology. The Lawnmower 4.0 has a 7,000 RPM motor and a new multifunction on and off switch that can engage a travel lock and is even waterproof. The Lawnmower 4.0 also has a 4000K LED spotlight you can turn on and off when needed for a more precise shave throughout your travels across the universe. The Performance 4.0 also includes the Weed Whacker. It's like having a little astronaut to chop your worst weeds up the top of your nose and your ears. The Weed Whacker is also waterproof and uses a 9,000 RPM motor-powered 360-degree rotary dual-blade system. This nose and ear hair trimmer provides proprietary skin-safe technology, which helps prevent nicks, snags, and tugs in those delicate holes. Don't forget about the Crop Preserver, ball deodorant, and the Crop Reviver to help your little planets be on their A-game while feeling the sun's heat. Manscaped even threw in 2 free gifts to their Performance Package 4.0, the Manscaped Boxers and the Shed Travel Bag. Abort hairy balls, Buzz Lightyear that Woody with Manscaped.
And that leads us to the defense.
Yeah.
Starting with our defensive line. There are 7 guys on this Rams roster for the defensive line. And that includes Ashawn Robinson, Aaron Donald, Sebastian Joseph Day, Greg Gaines, Michael Hecht, Jonah Williams, and Bobby Brown III. Jake, this is a really good group. I have to admit, I was a little bummed to see Eric Banks let go because I did like Eric Banks. I just think that it kind of probably came down to maybe him and Jonah Williams and Jonah Williams took that spot. But I can't complain because this is a really solid group of guys, in my opinion. I think obviously the starters out of this group are A'Shawn Robinson, Aaron Donald, and Sebastian Joseph Day. And the other guys will be rotating in. But unlike our offensive line, I think that we have really good depth at the defensive line position. What do you think about this group of guys here on the 53-man?
Yeah, so it's funny because I mean I think this roster's great. To be honest with you, I gave it an A. But it's funny because the defensive line initially I had them doing the same thing and keeping A'Shawn Robinson, but I had them not keeping Jonah Williams, and there were people surprised that I didn't stick by that because I loved Williams. I kept saying he looked great in the Cowboys stream of their joint practice. He looked great, when his number was called in preseason. But seeing him get capped, I was very happy with, because he did not play with the ones or the twos. He wasn't playing with guys necessarily next to guys that had a chance. He was playing next to guys that didn't make the team. So the fact is he made the most of his opportunity, even if it was like the lower of low, and caught the Rams' attention. We do have information on this, is that A'Shawn Robinson is not going on short-term IR like I initially thought. So because of that, he is going to be ready for week 1. Greg Gaines will not start. But it is interesting because they're keeping 7, but there's no caveat. They're actually going to keep 7 on the defensive line. They kept 6 last year. Last year they had Brockers, they had Fox, and they had Banks. I think they're better this year. And I think that's saying a lot because, Brockers and Fox were contributors last year. I think Michael Hoyt really earned his keep, and he's a guy that they've kind of pegged as somebody that can replace Morgan Fox.
Yeah, Michael. Yeah, not Michael Hecht.
I didn't mean to correct you, but yeah, I learned that, and now I feel so good that I've actually learned how to say his name.
I don't know why I said it wrong. I was just reading through as fast. Guys, if you know that Jake and I are like exhausted right now. Okay, going to the outside linebacker position. We've got 5 outside linebackers on this roster, including Leonard Floyd, Justin Hollins, Ogbo Okoronkwo, Terrell Lewis, and Chris Garrett. I feel like I said Okoronkwo wrong, but I don't know. It's fine, guys.
Yeah,
I can't speak right now. I'm also distraught because Justin Lawler is not on this list, which was a surprise to me. Well, I'm genuinely upset that Justin Lawler. Justin Lawler. Yeah, no, I was reading Justin Hollins off of my list when I said that, but it's Justin Lawler. I am really upset that Justin Lawler isn't on the roster. That was a bit of a surprise to me. I just thought he played really well in the preseason games, and yeah, I don't know. I just really liked him, and I'm a bit surprised that he isn't on the roster. But other than him, there's no one else, looking at these outside linebackers that I'm surprised isn't there. But Jake, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, it was a really small group because they had already cut Maximilian Roberts, and they just didn't have as many this year. They really liked what they had: Leonard Floyd, Justin Hollins, Okoronkwo, Lewis, Garrett, and then they had John Daka, a guy that they claimed from the Jets, who was waived the UDFA last year out of James Madison. And then you had Justin Lawler. And I thought Lawler had already made the team, so I was a little shocked by that. But, I guess it does make kind of, a little sense. Had Lawler blown up in preseason after the Chargers game and had consistent performances like that, that would have been one thing. It would have been really hard to keep him. But I think we'll actually be able to potentially sneak him on the practice squad and have him on quote-unquote, speed dial. Because I don't, this is somebody that's had multiple injuries. He's been IR 2 years in a row. Like, I don't know how many teams even realize, he's, around, except for the Chargers, who saw him firsthand. Maybe the Chargers will pick him up to kind of add, a thorn in the Rams' side. But I think they'll be able to get him back if they really want him. I like the look of this outside linebacker group, and it does sound like Okoronkwo is going to go on short-term IR. So that was a perfect opportunity. If Lawler does clear waivers, he could come back. And it's one of those weird things where Chris Garrett, his emergence, I think, might have surprised even the coaches. 7th rounder, he might have been way ahead of schedule for them, and so they had to make that move. But, Garrett is looking all of a sudden, if Okoronkwo goes some short-term IR and can't play until week 4, Chris Garrett's all of a sudden looking at being the 4th guy in line. and a true backup. So like a next man up type of guy. So it's a big move there for Chris Garrett to make this roster as a 7th rounder, since I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up Ernest Brown the fourth did not.
Right. That's true. I was even thinking about that. Yeah, Ernest Brown the fourth, the 5th round pick by the Rams this year, did not make this roster, which honestly seems like it's for the best. But I mean, it's obviously disappointing that you feel in a sense that you wasted a 5th round pick on someone who's not even going to make the roster. But
It's only a waste if he doesn't come back, though. I think they'll be able to bring him on
right.
the practice squad, and that's probably they identified that ahead of time.
Yeah, I think he'll probably be back. But I'm excited to talk about the inside linebacker position. Okay, so there's 4 inside linebackers on our roster, including Troy Reeder, Kenny Young, Traven Howard, and Ernest Jones. Not on this list is Micah Kaiser, who, not to be mean, but I think a lot of Rams fans were ready to see go for a couple different reasons. But Jake, I'll let you go first. What are your thoughts on this inside linebacker list? But specifically, what are your thoughts on Micah Kaiser not making the roster?
Yeah, I think they kept 3 last year. They kept Kaiser, Reeder, and Young. We know why they kept 3, because they eventually brought in Justin Hollins, who was going to play inside linebacker. He had made that transition. Now he's going to start at outside linebacker. But they're keeping 4 here, and they're doing it for a variety of reasons. Troy Reeder has been outstanding for them. He's asked them, he's done everything asked. Then you have Kenny Young, who has been more than just a throw-in in a trade for Marcus Peters. He's really come through. Then you have Traven Howard, a guy that offers more. They really were excited to have last year, has true sideline to sideline athleticism, former safety. And then you have Ernest Jones, that was kind of the writing on the wall, because he's so similar to Micah Kaiser that I just think that they were kind of like copying and not even copy and pasting, more so like copying, replacing in front of Micah. I think Kaiser is a good linebacker, and he's going to get picked up. And I think it might be by, Green Bay, Joe Barry worked with him last year as the linebackers coach. Or he might get picked up by last year's defensive coordinator that actually used him hands-on in Brandon Staley. So we'll see. But Kaiser's not done, and Christian Roseboom is a big focal point here, because I actually had him as my 5th linebacker if they went with 5. I just think, as much as they like Kaiser, it's just and they'll never say this, but it's the lack of availability. The best ability is availability, right. And he was always hurt.
Well, it's funny that you bring up the Packers, because I was literally, just before we recorded this podcast, I was looking at the 53-man roster for Green Bay. Came across my feed, and I remember thinking that they were kind of thin at that inside linebacker position, so I think that could be a good fit for him over there.
Yeah.
They look like they could use some extra help, but we'll see. But I do think Kaiser will get picked up. I don't think that he's going to make it to the practice squad. I think someone else is going to grab him. But that moves us to the cornerback position. There are 4 corners on our roster, including Jalen Ramsey, Darius Williams, David Long Jr., and Robert Rochelle. Jake, this is pretty much what I expected. Not a lot of thoughts here. I think it's a solid cornerback group. I think I'm a little skeptical about David Long Jr., but I think this is kind of be a big year for him, honestly. If, he hasn't really had much playing time, and I think that he's probably going to get more than typical this year. So we'll see how it goes. Obviously, Jalen Ramsey and Darius Williams are the obvious starters. But Jake, what do you think about the cornerbacks on our team?
Yeah, so this is funny because, and actually I forgot to mention this, with the linebackers, another thing is that they have safeties that can play pseudo linebackers. We've discussed so many times and probably annoyed people with. Anyway, cornerbacks. You said David Long needs to have a good year. I was actually thinking about it. David Long probably isn't going to play as much as, people are concerned about. When we really think about it, David Long is not even cornerback 3, and that's why they only kept 4. It's going to be Terrell Burgess. Burgess is going to play the nickel. And so Burgess playing the nickel, I think, opens up. I mean, you could do roster math there. You technically have 5 cornerbacks. You feel good. I mean, Robert Rochelle's a long-term, only a 2-year starter, former receiver turned defensive back. So he's only a 2-year starter in college. So that's a guy they want to develop, and he has all the measurables they want. So now it's a matter of getting him in their process. And then David Long is somebody that they really like, but he doesn't have to play right away, and he doesn't have to be the next man up. Terrell Burgess, I think, is going to be their nickel, and so I think it allowed them to get away with keeping only 4 corners. But they have maybe the best cornerback tandem in the league in Ramsey and Williams. Rochelle is insurance in case they lose Williams, although I think they'll be able to bring back D-Will. And David Long, we haven't seen him. So, we haven't really seen him that much. He could surprise if, given that opportunity. And that's a good problem to have. So if Burgess, emerges as the nickel, then you feel great. But if all of a sudden David Long emerges, as a nickel, then you still feel great. It's like you really can't lose. And so I definitely like that they decided to keep only 4 corners and 4 linebackers and use the positional versatility to their advantage.
For sure. Which leads us into the safety position, which is pretty deep. I mean, there's 6 quote-unquote safeties on this roster. You mentioned Terrell Burgess, who is technically a safety, but he might be used in some other positions. But as far as the safety position goes, we have Taylor Rapp, Nick Scott, Terrell Burgess, Jordan Fuller, J.R. Reed, and Juju Hughes. These are all the guys on the 53-man roster. Not a surprise here. It's a pretty good group. Honestly, personally looking at talent per position on the Rams roster, I'd say the safety position is pretty much up there for me. I think it's a really solid group. I think that not only is it solid, but everyone on that list has potential. But Jake, what are your thoughts on this group of safeties for the Rams?
Yeah, I look at this group of safeties, and I think it was weird the way that they put Taylor Rapp, Nick Scott before everyone else, because it's like everything is in depth chart order, and then that is just out of order. But Rapp ended up doing a really nice job in camp and won the respect and the the trust. He has regained his where he was. And so the team really likes him. It's Fuller and Rapp as your starters, Burgess as your flex, or whatever you want to call it, hybrid safety / linebacker / corner. He can do it all. Then you have Nick Scott, who may or may not be ready for the Bears game, but they do have 2 other safeties that I don't expect them to keep. Unfortunately, Juju Hughes is probably a combination of the fact that Johnny Hekker did not make the 53. And while they're keeping him, he's on COVID IR. So he's going to be on the roster. And so this is kind of a pending roster, so to speak. So Juju Hughes, I don't expect to remain there, especially if the Rams decide to claim anyone. J.R. Reed is the guy I had. I didn't expect them to keep Juju Hughes, but it does make sense. Happy for Juju Hughes, although I don't know how long he'll be on the roster. Reed is very intriguing, had the familiarity going back to last season, early in camp with the Jaguars and Joe DeCamillis, the special teams coordinator, and McVay loves him. So this is somebody that I think was a lock to make the team. It took him a bit, but he had a great preseason. And he really just, he demanded the respect from the coaches, and he got it. So, they have a really nice safety room now. Is it as depth-filled as last year with John Johnson? I'm going to say no, just the sheer level of John Johnson. I think it would just be selling him short. The initial 53 we're talking about. But this 53, having this safety room is it's very impressive, and it's a testament to Sean McVay and the defensive coaches, especially Coach Evero, that have really just done a nice job of not only identifying the players that they want for their team, but really developing guys like J.R. Reed and Juju Hughes.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And that leads us to the specialist group. And so real quick, so here's who we have. We have Matt Gay, who is our kicker. And then another name that I will mispronounce, Matthew Orzechek.
I think it's Orzech.
Orzech?
Yeah.
Okay. Matthew Orzech, long snapper. And Johnny Hekker, who is not technically currently on the roster because he's on the COVID list, but once he clears COVID, he will be on the roster. And that is awesome news. Johnny Hekker is staying on the Rams. every Rams fan, that's been following knows that that's kind of been up in the air.
Yeah.
And, some people thought, oh, well, maybe he'll make the roster and then get traded. But I don't think that's the case because we traded Corey Bojorquez.
Hey, you said it right.
Did I? Okay.
You were like waiting for my approval. You're like,
I was
5,
panicking.
4, 3.
I'm so tired. Yes, but he got traded to the Packers, which means that Hecker is staying with the Rams, which is amazing news. Because I think not only myself, but most Rams fans were pretty bummed at the idea of Hecker being traded or released from the Rams because he's been around for so long and he's honestly probably the best punter in history. So very exciting news. I'm very happy with this group. Jake, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I think first off, I'm just going to say this, and this is mean, but the Rams actively don't have a punter on their roster right now, and they're that much better than last year because of Sam Sloman not being on the roster. Let's just point that out right away. Like, I mean, he's the worst draft pick of all time. Okay, sorry. Done being mean. Now, looking at it, I mean, Johnny Hecker is somebody that has just meant so much to this team, but I also think you can't discount how much leadership is impacted with this. This is the youngest roster in football, or at least it was before these cuts. And I don't think much of that changed. Johnny Hecker, letting a guy like that go, and maybe just assuming that, Bojorquez, is a little bit better than him now, and the fact that he's mastered the banana punt and all of that, maybe, just maybe, you let him go and all of a sudden your locker room takes a hit. You lost a premier locker room leader in Michael Brockers. If you were to let Johnny Hecker go, you're losing another leader. And I'm not saying that there's not enough leaders in the locker room, but it's never good to get rid of a proven, an obvious leader in Johnny Hecker. And so I think that a lot of that came into play. Sean McVay mentioned that, when discussing it in the presser. He said, he's done so much for this team way before I got here, and that definitely went into the decision. We don't basically take that light. I'm paraphrasing, of course, but he basically said, we don't take that lightly. And so while it sounds to me like there's going to be a restructure of some sort, because really the issue was that you could argue Bojorquez is better than him right now and is cheaper. The Rams have decided to keep Johnny Hecker. They're not worried about the whole COVID thing because he's on COVID IR. He's Sean McVay confirmed, one, he's vaccinated, despite popular opinion, and two, he's asymptomatic. So they feel really good about him. They talked to Johnny, he feels good, and that's why they decided to roll with him. So ultimately, I think it's the right move. If they stuck with Bojorquez, I would have, supported it as well. I think he was phenomenal. He had an amazing preseason, one of the best I've ever seen from a punter. But Johnny Hecker, he's been there, he's done that. And so, I think while Bojorquez might be a little bit better, I think people are discounting how important he is for that locker room chemistry. And I know he is just a punter, but that's what makes him Johnny Hecker. He just does so much more than just be a punter.
I agree. Couldn't agree more. I am very excited that he's remained a Los Angeles Ram. And Jake, that's going to do it.
Yeah.
We went through the entire 53-man roster. And you know what that means? That means that we are just closer to the actual NFL season starting. I'm so excited. I will be honest. Yesterday, I kept thinking it was this week. It is not this week. It is next week. So I'm slightly bummed about that. But it's okay. I've waited long enough. I can wait another week. And yeah, very exciting. 2021 NFL season is approaching. But guys, we'll be back soon. But until then, as always, if you like what you hear, please like and subscribe. You can follow us on social media at Downtown Rams. You can follow me at the Alexis Craft. That's Craft with a K. On Twitter, you can follow Jake at JK Bogan. And until next, guys, stay safe, take care, and go Rams.
with the 3-decade leader, BetUS. Join now for 125% bonus or 200% bonus with crypto using promo code RAMS125 and bet sports, casino, horses, pop culture, and more at betus.com. You bet, you win, you get paid. BetUS.
Get 20% off and free shipping with the code DTR at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com, and make sure to use code DTR. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped.